DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy, family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Keith Kaminsky, fucking good in the ball!
Santel, all the way to the basket, foul, lays it in for 2!
Hello, high school basketball fans. Happy New Year, and welcome to the Upstate Hoops Podcast. It's Monday, January 6th, 2025. I'm Jim Sinicropi, along with Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here inside the FingerLakes1.com studios at 12 North Park Street in Seneca Falls, New York. Getting back from everybody's still on holiday break, but the holiday basketball tournament's a little different schedule, a lot of different games, finally getting back to normal here in terms of some league play. We'll have an updated power rankings for you. It's been 2 weeks. Or no, we did do a power ranking last week. We just didn't do a show. So we'll update the power rankings. We'll look at the week ahead, some big games coming up. And, of course, we'll tell you everything that did happen over the extended holiday break, Christmas through New Year's. So the Upstate Hoops Podcast and all of our coverage of Wayne Finger Lakes High School basketball is brought to you thanks to the support of Little John and Barbie Orthodontics. Check out Dr. Rod and Dr. Liz online at littlejohnortho.com. Cicino's Pizzeria and Restaurant. Order online at cicinos.com, CICCINOS.com. And DeSanto Propane. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane. So, welcome back to the studio, fellas. We're past the kind of odd time of year for high school basketball, pre-Christmas to New Year's, and now the schedule's starting to look a little normal. And it's also literally begins the stretch run. You know, a month from now, we'll be about a week out from sectionals. So it's kind of crazy how fast it happens after the new year. And honestly, other than just one or two teams, I don't know what to think about anybody.
Yeah, I think we are technically a hair under 40 days to the sectional mark. I might be a little bit off, but I base that off of when the NASCAR season kind of begins, because it all begins at the same time. But answered some questions through the holiday break, I would say a little bit for some teams we had questions about. Doesn't make me maybe feel any more confident in the pool kind of happening this year, but it's one of those things where we mentioned it too, I think, that last podcast before for the holidays, and I think we officially kind of know who's who we can expect going forward to really be stepping up and continuing what they got going, and what teams need to do to improve.
I'm confused. A lot of teams I thought were heading a certain direction with some surprising losses. I think that the good news over the holidays was a lot of the Wayne Finger Lakes teams did pretty good, either going against Rochester City schools, some Section 4 Ithaca area schools, and then even going out west to Buffalo like Wayne did. Kyle, you've been keeping track of it all. It just, to me, seems surprising. We'll get into it with some of the scoreboards from the past couple of weeks, but Newark boys had a really tough week, for example, or a tough holiday stretch where we thought maybe they were going to maybe assert themselves at the top of our power rankings. And, and then on the girls' side, there's also been some strange things where teams are up and down, I guess. Nobody's really, other than the Wayne boys especially, really the only team that we 100% know or kind of who we thought they were.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a toss-up. I feel like since I've been doing it for now several years, seems like a team can really just beat any team, especially in the Finger Lakes East, where it just seemed like a lot of years you kind of had the 2-3 teams at the top, and they would just take care of business, among the bottom teams. But that's not the case this year, and I think that makes for a more exciting season and games to watch every night, and that's what I look forward to. Like I said, a few times I've went and checked the scores, and I'm like, is that a typo? Is that the wrong score or wrong way? But no, yeah, Newark has struggled a little bit. They have had some tough non-league games, but when you look overall, I mean, in some of the games, it doesn't seem like they're playing well, or they're just very dependent on one or two guys. They're not playing well as a team. Is what I'm trying to get at.
This leading to losses. Well, let's get into it and look at some of these results. We'll see what we're talking about here. Of course, you're seeing results over a 2-week span here, going back to right after Christmas, the week between Christmas and New Year's, and then, of course, the past week of New Year's. And, you look at the boys' scoreboard, you got Clyde with a couple nice wins before losing at Red Jacket. One of those things like, okay, here comes Clyde, and then they lose at Red Jacket. Gananda with a 13-point win over Calmum, followed with a loss to Wheatland Chili. Yeah, the Honeoye boys had a blowout win over Dansville and Warsaw. Again, trying to gauge maybe where they might figure into the Finger Lakes West, because they've been racking up some wins. Palmac, Newark, and Whitman all with wins over Rochester Schools on December 27th. And then Newark turned around and lost by 37 to Penfield and 1 point at home to Geneva before losing by 14 to Batavia. And I think that Marcus Whitman beat Batavia earlier this year too. So, these are the types of things I'm talking about that it's tough to make sense of. South Seneca boys had a nice week, 2 wins over Spencer Van Eden and Watkins Glen respectively, and then a rout of Williamson and North Rose Wolcott. So 4-0 holiday season for the Falcons. North Rose Wolcott did pick up a much-needed win, hosting HAC last Friday night. Wayne with 2 wins over Section 6 opponents, and then a 44-point rout over Mid-Lakes. Lions needed OT to beat Canisteo Greenwood 69-67, and then the Minders boys bounced back post-Christmas with wins over Bloomfield, and then really a stunning win over Palmac, given the margin 53-22 last Friday. So, I don't even know where to start with some of this stuff. We did start talking about Newark being kind of shocking. But like I said, Minders bounces back with those wins over Bloomfield and Palmac, and now it seems like the middle of the Finger Lakes East standings is all bunched up. You got Wayne and then everybody else.
In the defense of Newark, a couple of years ago they started off pretty slow too.
Yeah, that's what they do.
And you know where they ended up.
Yep.
So, look, it's tough. I mean, the holiday stuff too. I mean, you don't know fully how.
A lot of sickness too going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really, I mean, that's the other part of it too, right? It's been a wonky 14+ days since we really reconvened and talked. So, I just a couple things to shout out a little bit here too on my end that I got. During the Marcus Whitman game against Bishop Kearney that they won, Brody Royston got to 1,000 career points. Yep. I saw.
He's a huge milestone.
Good stuff going on there. The Canisteo Greenwood thing with Lions is going to be interesting because not to look too far down the line here, but Canisteo Greenwood plays Marcus Whitman tomorrow in Marcus Whitman, so that'll be a pretty good barometer test, especially coming up. Not to again go way too far down the line, but Lions and Whitman meet up next week, so that'll be a pretty good precursor to what we might be able to expect in that game.
Yeah, it's. And I think Canisteo Greenwood and Lions are both in the same overall class, but not subclass. So it could be a potential play-in type of situation, state playing game down the road. But again, getting way ahead of ourselves. Yeah. Cam Blankenberg certainly doing some scoring though for Wayne over Christmas. You remember he missed the first couple games, he had his ankle in a boot, but appears to be completely recovered.
Yeah, he's averaging 31 points per game over 6 games this season. He did miss the first 2. His last game with 46. He actually has over 40 points in 2 of his last 3 games. He's just been scoring basically whenever he wants. And I do have a quick note on him as well. He's actually 16 points away from breaking his brother Logan's all-time scoring record at Wayne.
Wow, so it's pretty much locked in.
Yeah, so he'll do that tomorrow night against Newark. He'll probably score 30 or more easily again. Yeah. Maybe even in the first half he'll take care of that. No problem. That's how good he is.
Yeah, and you mentioned his brother Logan, a great player, was on the team that brought the first sectional titles to Wayne. Then went on, I think he's playing at Nazareth. Is that right? Yeah,
that sounds right anyway.
But that 46 points by Cam bested his brother's single game school scoring mark. So now Cam holds that record too. And sorry, Logan, I think Cam's going to have all of them by the time he's done here. But of course, what he wants the most is that sectional championship. And I think Logan had 2, or was he on 1 and then graduate, and then they get the second one? They had back to back. No, I'm pretty sure that he was on the team for both of them. Those are some great Wayne teams for sure. And this is a great Wayne team as well. Coach Thompson has really built a juggernaut up there in Wayne. And a lot of people say, well, geez, they're the biggest school in the Finger Lakes East. And they are Class A school, where a lot of the teams in the East aren't. Although Newark, I think Geneva are this year.
Newark, Geneva, Palmac.
Yeah, Palmac as well. Again, we'll get to the classification.
I think Mid-Lakes is 2 actually now.
That's crazy, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
If I'm recalling right, I'm pretty sure Mid-Lakes is A
It
now.
does seem like everything's shifted up when I was browsing the classifications. A lot of C teams are now B2 teams.
In fact, I think it's because there's 2 AA's this year. AA1 and AA2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that would make sense. Generally, you're seeing the schools kind of bunched up with the schools they're traditionally used to playing with. But I can remember a time, when Wayne had a pretty good team with like Trey Lamora was and Connor Hollenbeck. I mean, get people from Wayne remember those guys' names. But yeah, they weren't the top of the Finger Lakes East by any means. It's something that's kind of been built up over time. And now it's like a great culture, that they have there. Although I think the Blankenberg run is going to end for Coach Thompson when Cam moves on. I don't think there's any more down the line. But so let's take a look at the girls now. See what they were doing over the holiday season. Dundee Bradford with a couple of wins over holiday break, and then a huge 37-36 overtime win at Marcus Whitman. A big game in the West there for Dundee Bradford, then handing Whitman, the girls, their first loss, a 1-point overtime game. Bloomfield beat Avon by 34, then again the next day by 35. And then they step out and beat the Newark girls 57-55 in Bloomfield. Newark lost to Aquinas, beat Gates Chili, and then Central Valley Academy 44-40. Not sure who they are, but Newark beat them by 4. And the Waterloo girls lost a game to Eastridge, but then easily bounced back with wins over Livonia and Penn Yan. Minders girls continue to struggle with a loss to Spencer Van Eden and a 22-point loss to Palmac, although they did get a 60-26 win over South Seneca in Seneca Falls on December 29th. Tough start to 2025 for the Mid-Lakes girls, who dropped a 50-47 game at East Rochester, and we saw the Lions girls fall at Notre Dame Batavia 69-63. So, take a look at the girls. And, again, similar to the boys, it seems like one step forward, one step back for a lot of teams. Getting a 1 win and then a couple losses. I mean, it's nobody's standing out. We thought, again, like the boys, that the Newark girls were going to be, like, pretty dominant. And then they lost to Bloomfield, who's in the East this year, Finger Lakes East team, which is kind of odd. But, any thoughts on the girls' action?
I feel like for me, it's kind of similar to the boys. This Waterloo girls at number 1, kind of just, doing their thing as usual, I feel like, in that sense. But, yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's weird because I feel like, for me, and this kind of goes into the power rankings stuff maybe a little bit too much, but like the top 5 for me on both sides at least have been pretty easy to at this point to just kind of go and do. And then after that, as you alluded to, Jim, more or less it's like, okay, we got a pool of teams kind of going at it like 500 more or less right now.
Yeah, I had Newark girls top 5. I don't know where I put them this week, but we'll find out next.
But it's just like one of those things where it's like it's just tough because now these teams are just going to beat up on each other, and it's not going to get any easier on this end to kind of judge where teams are kind of at. I mean, it's just kind of interesting. I know the Newark and Bloomfield game, Dundee Bradford and Marcus Whitman, those were kind of the two games for me in the past week that kind of stood out more than anything else on the girls' side of things, and you brought them up, Jim, and it's one of those things where I think the next couple of weeks are going to really have to, maybe both sides of the basketball here, right? They're going to have to show us, what we got here or maybe what we don't got.
Dundee Bradford was the class of the West, I'd say, last season, obviously. And now they're starting to hit their stride. Whitman has been improving their program under Liz Royston for the past few years, and I think we're undefeated heading into this game. It was an overtime game. They'll play again. It's that's shaping up to be a pretty interesting rivalry here in the Finger Lakes West. How about you, Kyle, with the girls?
Yeah, on the Finger Lakes East, I mean, Newark led by 19 over Bloomfield at halftime. Newark also had that bad ending against Waterloo where they lost by 1 point. They didn't know the situation. So those are two perfect examples right there. If those games flip, I mean, the standings are even more difficult and more like you don't have a grip on the standings.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. It's like it seems so wide open compared to normal. Even Waterloo, I get they're 6-2, but I just mentioned, they could have easily had 4 losses.
Yep.
And then as for Dundee Bradford and Whitman, I've always said that I thought Dundee Bradford was the better team, despite losing their 3 seniors from last year. Still have Kendall Parker. I know they only won by 1, but I watched some of that game. Kendall Parker had her worst game I would say I've ever seen. She had 8 points going into the fourth quarter. That's not usually who she is, and I think if they meet again, Dundee Bradford wins that game by more and sweeps them in the season.
We'll be down in Dundee when they do meet again coming up here. So with that being said, time to unveil the power rankings for the first power rankings of 2025. And we'll start with the girls this week, and there you go. Waterloo, despite a loss to Eastridge, holds the number 1 spot, followed by Pelmac. Lions also losing this week. Bloomfield got the big win against Newark into the top 5. Dundee Bradford, as we mentioned. Newark falls to 6. Whitman stays probably about steady at 7. Clyde Savannah, Gananda, and Minder still hanging around in there with that big win over South Seneca, or that big margin of win. I don't know how big of a win it was implication-wise, but yeah, and really there's a lot that could go on around that 10th spot, but Minders is holding on to it right now. Yeah, and, I got no real complaints about this. I do think Newark will eventually climb back into the top 5. It's tough to gauge Lions against the Finger Lakes East teams, and then you got Bloomfield. This is the thing. Bloomfield moved to the East. Great. If they were in the West, they'd be in the mix with Dundee and Marcus Whitman. It would be a great league. But now they're in the East battle. It probably prepare them better for sectionals, I suppose. But right now, while this would be usually our power rankings are dominated on both sides by East teams. But if you consider Bloomfield still a West team, even though they're not, they are an East team, you'd have 3 of the top 5 not being from the Finger Lakes East, which was an odd situation. So now let's kick it over and take a look at the boys. And no surprise there with Wayne number 1. Maybe a surprise with Lions too. They didn't have the, they did beat Canasteo Greenwood, needed overtime, and picked up some losses this year for sure. But in East Rochester, still any blemishes on their schedule? Still undefeated?
Still undefeated.
They'll have a test coming up this week, I think, as they travel to Lions, which would have formerly been a Wayne County rivalry game. So we'll talk about that. And then Marcus Whitman boys up to 4, Waterloo boys up to 5. So right there, East Rochester, Marcus Whitman, and Waterloo, none of them were top 5 in our preseason rankings. And I don't think East Rochester or Waterloo were even ranked. So win games, and that's what happens. Geneva up to 6. Again, they had that 1-point win against Newark. Minders boys kind of turning things around, it looks like. They're back up to 7. And then Newark just taking a lot of shots down to 8. But as Paul mentioned, they tend to be able to get hot at the right time. So from here on out, they're going to start that rebuilding process and try to get some wins heading into sectionals. South Seneca boys quietly just off to a great start to their season, coming in at 9, and then, geez, the Palmyra Manson and boys just got spanked by Minders, dropping them way down to 10th. But, yeah, South Seneca with a 4-0 record over the holiday sneaks up to 9 in our power ranking. So there you have it. I think that there was more consensus in these power rankings maybe than any that we've done this year.
Well, on the boys' side, there was. I mean, it was just we all had the same 10 in there that were ranked. Nobody had anybody differentiating there. Do want to say shout out still going on Red Creek, Red Jacket, Gananda, Dundee, Bradford boys, and Honeyway boys as well. I mean, I know you mentioned Honeyway boys in there, but those are kind of the 5 teams on the outside looking in on the boys' side I'm keeping an eye on. And then on the girls' side of things, South Seneca girls, Red Creek girls, Williamson Marion girls as well. Kind of a similar deal going last year. Not too sure what to fully expect from them in terms of, say, longevity of keeping up what they got going on. But then I got East Rochester still kind of hanging out on the outside looking in. Something about them tells me that they'll maybe make a reappearance in the next couple of weeks as long as they kind of keep what they had going on over the holiday.
A nice win
going.
over Mid Lakes, a Finger Lakes East team, 3-point win to start the new year. So,
and they got East Rochester girls have Bloomfield coming up too. So
yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Yeah. But how about you, Kyle? Anything out of line in those power rankings?
No, it was tough though because I know I get a loss is a loss, but Marcus Whitman faced that 7-0 World of Inquiry team.
Yep.
They're number 1 in B1.
Yep.
They did lose by double digits as well, but it was just tough because I don't know if Lions is better than Marcus Whitman, but we'll see in about 10 days.
Yeah.
But I had to put Lions up because they did win in overtime. So other than that, I don't think I had any differences. I do think East Rochester is eventually going to lose a game coming up, even maybe as soon as Wednesday.
Yeah, they haven't had the toughest schedule, but they have taken care of business. And they do have some tougher games coming up, as we mentioned. And going back to those Finger Lakes West teams, it seems like the West as a whole is pretty solid. Remember, these are usually smaller classification schools. Tough to rank them up against the likes of the Lions or Finger Lakes East teams. But as far as sectionals go, we might have a lot of teams go pretty far this year in sectionals. From what I'm seeing, teams are losing and they're beating each other in league, but we're stepping out of league and getting a lot of nice wins and a lot of nice wins against other sections. So from that perspective, it's been a pretty good start, I suppose. But now this season really gets into swing with a lot of head-to-head games as we move into January. So let's take a look at the week ahead here in Wayne Finger Lakes High School basketball. And we'll start with the boys. Tuesday night, that Canasteo Greenwood team that we just talked about at Marcus Whitman. So it'll be nice. We mentioned Lions will play Whitman the following week.
They did already play, by the way, Whitman and Canasteo Greenwood. They played in the opener. Whitman lost by 9. So that's actually their second meeting.
That's right. Second time they played him. This will be the second time.
Yep.
So let's see if we can get an improvement there. And then a big one, Minders at Waterloo. That's shaking it up to be highly entertaining. So the Minders boys will be at Waterloo on Tuesday night. Newark at Wayne, a good bounce-back chance for the Reds. And then Newark at Canandaigua the next night. East Rochester at Lions Wednesday night. And then Red Creek at Gananda as well. But I think all eyes will be on the East Rochester Lions game on Wednesday. Thursday, South Seneca at Bloomfield. Red Jacket at Honeyway. Some of those Finger Lakes West teams we were talking about. And then Friday night, Hoops Gananda at Clyde Savannah. Should be entertaining as Clyde is showing improvement. Geneva at Waterloo, big crosstown rivalry game. They met for the sectional title in the Blue Cross a few years ago in an instant classic. And then Newark at Minders. Let's see if Minders can, between at Waterloo and then hosting Newark this week, see if they can continue that upswing. And Wayne's taking on Palmac. That's a bit of a crosstown rivalry game there as well. Then Saturday, East Rochester at Bloomfield. East Rochester boys at Bloomfield. So interesting slate of games for the boys. Let's see what the girls have on tap this week. Wednesday, you got Penn Yan at Bloomfield. Avon Whitman. Mid-Lakes at Pelmac, and Waterloo Minders on the girls' side, too. That's Wednesday night. Thursday night, Gananda at Red Creek highlights the slate. Friday night, girls' high school basketball, Waterloo at Bloomfield. I love that one. That's going to be the game of the week, in my opinion. Whitman at South Seneca, also a pretty interesting game. His South Seneca girls program off to a good start this year. Penn Yan at Mid-Lakes, Minders at Newark, and then Saturday you got East Rochester at Bloomfield girls. More interesting maybe on the girls' side than the boys' side, but definitely should be fun. I don't know if they're doing it back-to-back. They're both at Bloomfield, so I imagine it is a back-to-back type of girls-boys doubleheader, which we love to see. Can't confirm. I'm just saying that's what it looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in the schedule.
I mean, yeah, that's what we always kind of bark for. The only other game I want to make of note, necessarily, they didn't bring up, kind of mentioned them because they're on my outside looking in, just on the edge, but the boys, Dundee Bradford at Avoca Prattsburg tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm.
AP's been a pretty good program the past handful of years, so.
Not anymore.
Yeah,
Well,
we beat them.
bad.
Wayne Finger
Are they
Lakes
down?
team beat
Are
them
they,
this
are they
year.
down?
They're like 1-4,
No.
and they've been getting blown out. They've lost like 4 or 5 seniors.
Who did they lose to from Wayne Finger Lakes recently?
Yeah, it was somebody. Hold on, it's going to take a minute.
Just
to
jumped
find
out to me because, like Paul said, traditionally a strong program, but not this year.
Either way, it's a pretty good, I'd say, gauge test for Dundee Bradford in a spot. You know, they were up a couple years ago, a bit of a dip year last year, but coming back a little bit here up here. So
Yeah, East Rochester beat them by 31. Yeah, they just aren't the same.
Yeah, and again, that's East Rochester boys team. It's going to be fun to see them play Lions this week because on paper they've been unbeatable. And Lions has played tough competition, but has dropped some games, and I think it's going to be a great measuring stick for both teams for sure, and a former league teams, and definitely rivalry. There's a rivalry there between Lions and East Rochester for sure. So, yeah, it's fun. A lot of good games coming up. Any plans broadcasting? We make a decision yet?
I don't have anything solidified yet. Looking like if we do a game, it's going to be Friday night. Just kind of gauging. We'll call it a diamond stronghold at the moment. I'm weighing about 5 different game options amongst.
Geneva at Waterloo, one of them?
That's one of them. The other,
Newark at Minders.
Waterloo and Bloomfield girls is also a possibility. So
I like it.
it's tough because next week is probably going to be a 2-game week, more than likely. So just the way the schedule shakes out. So weighing the options, but for sure I would put at 97% will be somewhere Friday night. So.
And we do have a big game tonight on the girls' side. We have 5-2 Bloomfield at 8-1 York.
Yeah.
They've already played, and then the first meeting, York won 41-40. So it's should be another great game tonight.
Yeah, see if Bloomfield can even up that season series against York.
Yeah, they've won 5 straight since starting 0-2. Like I said, they came back from down 19 at Newark. So Bloomfield's been playing well. I think they're going to continue to move up in the power rankings.
And that was one of those teams heard a lot about preseason, like Bloomfield girls going to be pretty good this year. Then they open up 0-2. But yeah, since then they've been playing great.
Didn't they? Well, they didn't quite do the same thing last year because they were near undefeated. I remember pretty much almost the whole year, but we kind of admittedly probably overlooked them early on, and kind of the same thing happened this year. So, but they brought back a lot. So I think that's why I like that Friday game against Waterloo. It's even if we don't go to it, it's going to have to be like must watch, I'd say in that sense. So it's a pretty big week for the Bombers of Bloomfield.
Yeah, they're tied with Pelmac for the second best league record as well, at 3-1 behind Waterloo 4-0.
Yeah.
So they're right there. They could. There's still even a possibility they could end up with the best record. Who
Oh,
knows?
yeah, sure. And you mentioned that 1 point Newark lost to Waterloo.
Yep.
If that goes 1 point the other way,
Yeah.
different conversation. So definitely a lot of these things going to be playing out in the hardwood this week in the coming weeks as we see who's constantly working our way towards sectionals. Nobody likes the leagues as much as I do. I like the league chases, but really nobody cares.
Well, I don't disagree.
It's about sectionals. I like the.
I
think
enjoy
being a league champion, regular season league champion, something to hang your hat on. Not the ultimate goal, but
Sure.
put it in the trophy case.
I don't know. It's tough for me because I've mentioned on here before a little bit, but I'm a college sports sicko, so I enjoy like the conference stuff in there, and that translates to over on this side of things as well. I mean,
We're starting to move around in high school. People moving leaves just like they were in college conferences. Realignment.
But I do think there's still, for maybe not all the teams, obviously, but for a good majority of them, I still think that league title, at the very least, is still a big check mark to check off on the box through a season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
League jams. Yeah. Hey, you play these teams every year. Twice a year, everybody's playing, and I just think the league title's a nice thing to hang your hat on, but obviously not the ultimate goal. Ultimate goal being a sectional championship. Some teams looking beyond that too, but every sectional champion always considers it a very, very successful season, and that's why they hang the banners in the gymnasiums. So, we'll be keeping our eye on it. Thanks for tuning in for the Upstate Hoops podcast this week. Of course, we will return next week.
Yes.
Follow us on Facebook, on X. We got a Blue Sky account now, I think. I gotta check it.
I was going to ask about that. I've been meaning to ask, do we?
I think we do, but I don't know if it's active yet.
I'm over on Blue Sky.
I think we did register it. And
I'm over on Blue Sky.
yeah, I'm on Blue Sky as an individual.
Yeah.
So, TikTok at FL1 Sports. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Our audio-only podcast is available most everywhere you enjoy your audio content. You can also find our show, live stream games, and local news, weather, and sports 24/7 on the free FingerLakes1.com Android or iPhone app. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week on Monday afternoon at 2 o'clock. Until then, have a great week.